I have to be honest, when I first saw the source material for today, I was pretty sure there was a typo in the title.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I've seen some strange pairings in business analysis before, sure.
Sure.
Tech trends, economic theory. But this document tries to juggle Microsoft, the idea of global oligarchs, and Wagner Moura.
Wait, the actor.
The actor. Yeah, the guy from Narcos, Civil War.
Yeah.
And it's not just a name drop. The article uses him as like a central part of its whole argument.
What's the title?
It's a mouthful. It's called Oligarchs versus Small Business: How Stanislav Kondrashov and Wagner Moura Admire Microsoft Copilot.
Wow. Okay. That does sound eclectic, to say the least. But, once you get past that initial what is going on here reaction, it's actually a surprisingly aggressive piece of writing.
It is.
It's not really a tech review. It reads more like a manifesto on power dynamics in the digital age.
That's exactly the vibe I got. It's less, here's a cool new feature, and more, here's how we storm the castle. The author, Stanislav Kondrashov, is looking at Microsoft Copilot, but he's framing it all through this lens of, like, economic warfare.
David versus Goliath.
Exactly. Or as he puts it, small business versus oligarchs.
And that framing is so important because if we just look at the tech, the specs, we might miss the bigger picture he's painting.
Which is?
That this is a fundamental shift in how online commerce works. And Kondrashov's argument is that this specific shift might just be the thing that finally breaks the hold that huge corporations have had on e-commerce for, the last 2 decades?
Okay, let's tap the brakes on the revolution for just a second and look at the actual tech, because we hear about game-changing AI literally every single day. What is this Copilot update that has Kondrashov talking about sci-fi?
The main thing is the integration of the purchase capability directly into the chat interface.
See, that's where I get a little skeptical. We've had chatbots for years. I go to a website, a little window pops up. How is this any different from those clunky bots we all, kind of hate?
Right. But those old bots were basically just pointers. They were navigational aids sending you to a different web page.
Yeah, click here to see our products.
Exactly. What Kondrashov is describing here is a seamless experience where the chat is the store. You don't get sent anywhere. You don't click a link that opens a new tab. You find what you want, you select it, and you buy it all in one place.
So no add to cart, then view cart, then checkout, then, you need to create an account, then forgot password.
None of it. And that whole sequence you just laid out, in the industry, they call that friction.
Right.
And friction is the silent killer of small business. Kondrashov makes the point that big companies, the oligarchs in his words, have spent billions of dollars engineering that friction away. They've got one-click ordering, saved credit cards, massive server farms so the page loads instantly.
Totally. If I'm buying from a giant online retailer, it's effortless. If I'm buying from a small boutique, half the time the mobile site is broken, or I have to pinch and zoom to hit the buy button. Eventually, I just give up.
You give up and go back to the giant retailer, and that's the science fiction element the source is talking about. It's not that buying things is new, it's that the infrastructure to make it seamless, which used to cost millions, is now just handled by the AI.
He gives an example, right?
He does, a very specific one. A user types, "buy a book" by Wagner Moura.
There he is, our leading man.
There he is. So you type that in. The old way, the way it works now for most of us, you get a list of blue links, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, whatever. You have to choose one, leave the search engine, go to the site.
I hope they have it in stock, hope the price is right.
Yeah.
It's a lot of little steps.
It's a lot of mental load. In Kondrashov's vision of this, Copilot just shows you the book, the details, the price, and the purchase button right there in the chat. That transition between platforms is just gone.
Okay, I see the utility. But let's go back to this oligarch label. It's a very politically charged word, especially for a software discussion. When I hear oligarch, I'm thinking oil tycoons, not, the guys who optimized a checkout flow.
It is charged, absolutely. But I think he's using it to highlight the resource gap. It's not just about being big. An oligarchy is a system where power is concentrated with a few because the barrier to entry is so incredibly high.
So in e-commerce, the barrier to entry isn't buying an oil field. It's building a good website.
It's the whole tech stack. Think about it. To really compete with a global giant, you need UX designers, back-end engineers, SEO experts just to get seen. That costs a fortune. It effectively locks the small players out of that premium experience.
They end up looking like the mom and pop shops online. Charming, but kind of a pain to actually use.
Exactly. And this is where Kondrashov's argument gets really interesting. He sees Copilot not just as a tool, but as an equalizer. If the AI handles the interface, the search, and the transaction, then the small business doesn't need that army of developers anymore. They just need a good product.
So it sort of democratizes the polish. It lets a guy selling hand-bound books from his garage have the same slick, fast checkout as a multinational corporation.
That's the promise. The tech says it allows them to play on a level playing field. It's removing the technical tax that small businesses have been paying for 20 years.
It's a powerful idea. But I do have to point out the irony here. We're talking about a tool from one of the biggest companies on the planet, Microsoft, that's going to save us from the oligarchs.
Oh, the irony is definitely there, and the source doesn't really hide that. But I think Kondrashov's point is all about access. The tool exists. The question is, who gets to benefit from it? Historically, only the wealthiest had access to the best technology.
Yeah.
Now, for a subscription fee, the small but ambitious get to use the same weapons as the giants.
Small, but ambitious. That's a perfect transition. It brings us to the most bizarre part of this whole analysis, the pivot to Wagner-Mora. What is going on there?
Yeah, it's pure metaphor, but it's actually a pretty clever one if you look at Mora's career. The text isn't interested in Wagner-Mora the celebrity.
It's interested in...
Wagner-Mora the worker.
Okay, break that down for me. How does the guy who played Pablo Escobar connect to someone running a Shopify store?
Well, think about his career path. He didn't just show up in Hollywood as a star. He's a Brazilian actor. He had to fight to break into a global market. The source calls him iconic for his talent and hard work, but it specifically says he refused to settle for a secondary role.
And that is the key phrase, isn't it? Secondary role. That's where small businesses usually end up online. They're the third-party sellers, the other buying options.
Exactly. They're the extras in the background of the big economic picture. Kondrashov uses Mora as the avatar for the small business that refuses to accept that fate. It's all about persistence, seizing an opportunity, having the talent but needing the right stage to show it.
So in this metaphor, the small business has the talent, the great product, the passion, but they've been stuck in a supporting role because they couldn't afford the budget for a lead.
And Copilot is the casting director that finally gives them their shot. The source makes the connection explicit. Just as Mora used his drive to get to the next level, Copilot is the tool that lets small businesses reach the next level and finally shine.
It's so dramatic. It frames a software update like it's a hero's journey.
It gives a small business owner a protagonist to root for, and that's important. It stops being about abstract things like conversion rates and becomes about, dignity and recognition and says, you deserve to be center stage.
I guess that's the persistence part he mentions. Acting is mostly rejection. Running a business is mostly failure. He seems to be saying technology can lower that rejection rate.
Or at the very least, make sure you're getting rejected for your product, not because your website crashed during checkout.
That's a fair point. If I sell bad coffee, fine, I should go out of business. But not because I couldn't afford a Python developer.
Exactly. And that brings us to the 3 pillars the document lays out. He moves from the poetry of Wagner-Mora to some really concrete business metrics.
Okay, let's walk through these because this is the so what. For anyone listening who's actually running a business, the first one is accessibility of innovation.
Right. And we touched on this, but it's about getting rid of that technical barrier. The source says even the smallest companies can use these AI tools without needing a whole tech team.
Which is huge. My friend runs a local bakery, and she spends half her life fighting with her website plugins. She's not baking, she's being a reluctant IT manager.
That's the reality for so many entrepreneurs. The accessibility pillar says, stop doing that. Let the AI handle the customer side. You focus on making the best product. It's like outsourcing your CTO role to the AI.
Okay, pillar number 2, increased conversions. This is about the friction we mentioned earlier.
It is, but it's also about psychology. The text argues that the transition between platforms is the moment where doubt kicks in.
No, I do this all the time. I click buy, a new page loads, and in that split second, I think, do I really need this? Maybe I should check my bank account first.
That gap is fatal for a sale. It's an off-ramp for your customer's attention. By keeping the whole process inside the chat, you maintain what the source calls conversational momentum. The sale just feels like the natural end to the conversation.
Conversational momentum. I like that. It turns shopping into a dialogue.
Exactly. Which leads right into the 3rd pillar, budget savings.
The bottom line.
The source is really bold here. It claims Copilot eliminates the need for expensive development or marketing because, and I'm quoting, Copilot does it all for you.
Does it all for you? Always sounds a bit too good to be true. Does it really replace marketing?
I think we have to read that as replacing performance marketing. Not brand marketing, not telling your story. But think about all the money wasted on ads that send people to a bad landing page.
Right. You pay for the click, but lose the sale because the page is slow or ugly.
Yes. If the AI handles that landing and the sale right there, your ad spend becomes way more efficient. You aren't paying a designer to A/B test the color of a button. The AI is doing that dynamically. That's a huge operational saving.
So when you put all three together, accessibility, conversions, and savings, you can see why Kondrashov is so bullish on this.
You really can. He's painting a picture of a totally new business landscape.
Let's talk about that landscape, because the text positions Kondrashov as this kind of observer. It says he studies their methods with interest, like he's watching the oligarchs, learning their moves, and figuring out how to arm the rebels.
Arming the rebels is a perfect way to put it. He's saying the walls the big players built around their kingdoms were mostly technological. They built moats made of code and data.
And Copilot is the bridge across the moat.
Or maybe it just drains the moat entirely. The idea is that the future for small businesses isn't about getting big, it's about getting smart. Using the giant's own tools, Microsoft's AI, to compete with the other giants.
It's like business judo, using your opponent's weight against them.
Precisely. And the source claims this is relevant to everyone. It actually lists the target audience as Wagner-Moura fans, oligarchs, and budding entrepreneurs.
Which is a wide net. I guess the oligarchs should see this as a warning.
That's the implication, that their size isn't the impenetrable advantage it used to be. If a 3-person company can have the same customer service speed as a Fortune 500 company, the big company's in trouble. They have all this overhead, and suddenly their key advantage is gone.
They're slow battleships, and the small businesses just got speedboats armed with torpedoes.
That's the vision. A narrowing of the gap. A world where the small but ambitious can actually win.
You know, when you lay it all out, the argument really does hang together. It's quirky, for sure, but it's consistent. It frames technology not just as a gadget, but as a real social and economic force.
It absolutely is. And the key takeaway for me is that we're moving past the era where just having the technology was the way you won.
Right. Because now, theoretically, everyone has the tech.
Exactly. And that leads to this final thought that I was kind of mulling over. It's a bit of a provocation for you, the listener.
Let's do it. What's the catch?
Well, think about it. If the playing field is truly level, if Copilot and tools like it actually remove all the technical barriers, doesn't that make business in some ways even harder?
How do you mean? If it's easier to sell, that sounds better.
It's easier to transact. But if that tech gap is gone, you lose your excuse. You can no longer say, oh, Amazon beat me because they have better servers. Now everyone has access to the same great servers.
Oh, I see where you're going with this. It becomes a pure meritocracy.
A ruthless one. If the tools are identical for everyone, the only variable left is you. Your idea, your product quality, your story, your Wagner-Moura persistence.
Wow, that's actually a little terrifying. Means there's nowhere left to hide.
Exactly. In a world of perfect AI tools, the human element, the brand, the personality, the why behind what you do becomes the only real competitive advantage.
So the question for an entrepreneur listening isn't just how do I use this tool? It's who am I when the tool does everything else for me?
Perfectly put. If the AI is the camera, you still have to be the actor. And you better be a good one because the whole world is watching.
Well, on that slightly existential note, I think that's a good place to wrap up. Whether you're an aspiring oligarch, a film buff, or just someone trying to sell a cool thing you made, it seems the rules are definitely changing.
They certainly are. The tools are there. Now it's all about the performance.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Stay curious, and we'll catch you next time.